month, Janani, in the first part of the ward rounds, we had an extensive discussion on the complications of post-thyroidectomy, arising out of post-thyroidectomy. So we were not able to complete the review of literature which Janani had collected. So we wanted to keep another class for that. And today she will be giving us the review of literature. So I will request others to ask their questions in the end of the presentation. It will be a very short class. Janani, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. So good evening, everyone. As we discussed earlier, the complications post-thyroidectomy will be early, intermediate, and late. And early complications are hemorrhage, voice change, airway obstruction, temporary hypoparathyroidism. And these are the intermediate complications, which includes seroma formation, infection, temporary palsy of recurrent laryngeal nerve and superior laryngeal nerve. The unilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve injury leads to hoarseness of voice, and bilateral recurrent laryngeal nerve injury leads to normal voice, but dysphonia and life-threatening disorder, stridor will be there. These are the late complications, which include subclinical hypothyroidism, permanent hypoparathyroidism, permanent injury to recurrent laryngeal nerve, and poor scar. So we'll go in details of every complications. Hemorrhage, post-operative hemorrhage results in neck hematoma, which leads to airway compression and respiratory distress. And post-operative hematoma, it accounts for 0.1 to 1.1% cases post-thyroidectomy. Almost all case occurs in first 6 hours after surgery, and 20% of cases occur between 6 hours to 24 hours post-op. Effective hemostasis should be our goal during the surgery, and also intraoperative bleeding blurs our operative planes. So it will be more prone for recurrent laryngeal nerve injury and injury to parathyroid glands. So our goal should be effective hemostasis. The treatment of hematomas, if the hematoma is unstable or progressively worsening, it needs bedside evacuation and reintubation. Options for intraoperative ligation of blood vessels include clamp, tie and cut with or without cautery. And the most preferred cauterization is with bipolar cautery because of less dispersion of heat than the monopolar cautery. Surgeons have encountered persistent ooze from the superior pedicle mostly, or from area directly adjacent to the nerve. So Surgicel can also be used in such cases. So there is always a question whether we should place drain or not, but for almost all cases, we place drain. But Cochrane review has compared 40 cases in each arm, that is drain versus no drain, after total thyroidectomy. Subjects without drain are in risk with seroma formation, and subjects with drain has longer hospital stay, that is 1.18 days, and increased post-operative pain is noted in them.
Janani, what is the risk? What is the percentage of risk of seroma?
The risk of seroma is around 3%, sir.
Then why do you say that drains are necessary then? If 3% risk, a very high risk for putting drains.
Sir, but there are the seroma can.
Drains are, she's not telling that drains are necessary. What she's telling is a quota. She's quoting the literature, where subjects without drain, risk of seroma is 3%. And if you place the drain, the patient will have a longer hospital stay, that is 1.18 days, and increased post-op pain. But what we have seen in our routine practices, it's the comfort of the surgeons. The surgeons are comfortable with putting a drain. Okay,
yes, sir.
We can put it, and I think 1.1 day is not such a huge duration of hospitalization where patient will have any difference to their stay. And post-op pain, I don't think a small drain will have that significant amount of pain. But as per the literature, this is what is given.
Yes,
So
sir.
Yes,
it
sir.
ultimately will be at the comfort of the
Yes, sir.
surgeon. Who operates
Yes,
the
sir.
surgeon.
I just wanted her to say that word only, sir. The comfort of the surgeon, because
Comfort,
we
yes,
are
sir.
frequently asked this question in practicals. So
So
ultimately,
ideally,
drains versus no drains.
ideally drains need not be put, but
Yes, sir.
eventually it will be at the comfort of the operating surgeon.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And drains are necessary, that is recommended in debulking procedures in cases of unresectable thyroid carcinomas or large, massive, locally advanced C8 thyroids, and also multiple in patients whom we perform multiple node dissections, and also huge mediastinal goiter and huge uncontrolled hypervascularized diffuse toxic goiter. So in all these cases, drain is must according to literature. Sir, anything so far?
What type of drain you keep, Janni?
Sir, sorry, sir.
What type of drains you keep?
Sir, we use the normal the closed drains, suction drains, sir.
You want to put suction pressure also?
Yes, sir. We
You need not
use.
pressurize. You need not pressurize the
Okay, sir.
this one apparatus. Just keep the drain, okay, and let it drain into the that equipment.
Okay, sir.
Am I correct, sir?
So,
Sir,
we
but in the literature they recommend it has to be a suction drain. But you are also correct. Since the output is not that high, you
Correct.
can get away with keeping a non-suction drain. But
Correct.
in the literature, if you are placing a drain, suction drain is preferable than a non-suction drain.
And corrugated drains are outdated, no, sir, as of now?
Corrugated drains are not outdated, sir. It's again, it's based on the surgeon's preference.
It produces
It produces a
ugly
bad
scar,
scar, sir. Yes, sir.
It
Yes,
is a
correct.
bad scar. That's the only
Yes, sir.
disadvantage of
Correct.
it. Otherwise, because of the output will not be that huge in all routine thyroidectomies. So you can get away by keeping a corrugated drain if regular drain is not available. But the downside of it is, again, as Saurav said, it is a scar.
Correct. Correct.
Yes, sir. So about recurrent laryngeal nerve injuries, it is the most feared complication post-thyroidectomy. It leads to paresis or palsy of vocal cords. Post-operative dysphonia with or without dyspnea might be there. So prevention is to ensure the integrity of nerve by identifying the course of the nerve appropriately. So these are the 5 different locations of recurrent laryngeal nerve, and in 41% cases, it is located anterior to tracheoesophageal sulcus, and in 35% cases, it is located posterior to inferior thyroid artery, and 88% cases, it is lateral to Berry's ligament, and 90% cases below the inferior rim of inferior constrictor muscle, and in 54% cases it enters larynx before its terminal division. So we'll be looking for the recurrent laryngeal nerve most often in tracheoesophageal sulcus, or while dissecting at the Berry's ligament we should be careful.
Janani,
Yes, sir.
what is tubercle of Zucker-Candle?
Sir, so actually it also comes in relation to the nerve, but I'm not very sure about the thing, sir.
Yeah, it is the posterior inferiormost part of the thyroid lobe itself, actually. And in around 20 to 25% of the cases, the recurrent laryngeal nerve may actually pass through the substance of that Zucker-Candle. Okay, so while we are dissecting the lower end, we may end up injuring the nerve. And also 35% of the cases, the recurrent laryngeal nerve may pass in between the 2 branches of the inferior thyroid artery. So I think Niranjan sir, you will be able to say in details more about this.
What?
Sir, the various anomalies of the recurrent laryngeal nerve. In that, sir, the tubercle of Zucker-Candle, sir.
You already mentioned that is what. So is
Okay,
important surgical landmark.
Medial, sir, medial to the tubercle of Zucker-Candle.
Yes, sir. So mostly it is medial to
Correct.
tubercle of Zucker-Candle,
Correct.
but in
Correct.
20-25% cases, it may pass through the substance.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So that is why we say, and also with respect to inferior thyroid artery, that's why we ligate it close to the gland.
Yes,
we
sir.
we never ligate the main inferior thyroid artery, which was earlier days they used to practice. What
Yes,
their
sir.
current thing is, we go close to the gland where we will be ligating the different branches of the inferior thyroid artery.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Will you say anything, sir?
No, I just wanted to ask what is buried ligament.
Janni.
Sir, it is the posterior, the thyroid is attached to the trachea posteriorly with the Berry's ligament, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Shall I
Sir?
go ahead, sir?
sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, sir. Who is this?
Hari, sir.
Hari,
Sir, about 20% of the cases may have voice change. They say post-thyroid. And
What is that?
25% case have a voice change after post-thyroidectomy.
29%. That is quite
25.
high.
Is it true, sir?
That is quite high. I don't think it is true.
Sir, Hari, what is the source of it? Is looks hype.
Yeah.
What is
It
the
is
source?
very high. There can be transient change of voice because of the soreness.
Yeah, yes,
It
sir.
can
Actually, the
happen due to-
transient and total, they are saying that. But most of the
Total,
reason
if
they
it
are
is
saying
total,
is
if it is 25%, it is very high.
yes,
Because
sir.
there can be transient sore change of voice because of the two things. One, if it is a large gland and you pull this thing, there will be sometimes soreness, pain, and all that. And the second is due to endotracheal intubation. That will produce some soreness. That can be transient, but high.
Yes, sir. Actually, there is
25%
a
is too high.
transient only, sir. I was mentioning about the transient voice change. So mostly it is like a recurrent laryngeal. What are the other possible explanation I wanted to know, sir? Because people
Apart from recurrent laryngeal nerve, transient paresis because of the pulling or handling or sometimes pressure. This one, the possibilities of voice change will be because of the soreness in the throat, because of your tube, endotracheal tube in the throat. So many of the patients have complained that they have some kitch in the throat, some dry. So probably that is the cause. Noli sir, anything else, sir? Noli sir?
Sir, transient is the answer, not the permanent. This one. Patients do have transient voice breakdown.
No, any other causes, sir, according to you? Same only.
No, sir. Same, sir, same.
Okay. In that case, wait and watch, no, sir.
Wait and watch, because if you have seen the nerve and preserved it, you have seen the movement of the vocal cords during extubation, and majority of the patients, that transient voice change is also like it will not very significant. They will not have hoarseness.
Okay, sir.
Sir, one of our patients, sir, in the wards, Ravi Shankar sir's patient, 2 months she did not have, but after 2 months her voice became completely normal.
Yeah, that will be because of the paresis, transient paresis of the recurrent laryngeal nerve.
That is the reason I asked.
It is lasting for months.
Yes, sir. 2.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. So, intraoperative neurostimulator has been described to detect nerve function intraoperatively. As we discussed earlier, nerve injury can be transient or permanent. If the recovery is less than 6 months, that is 4 to 6 weeks up to 6 months, we call it transient nerve injury. It is observed in 1 to 30% of cases. It can be due to intense stretching of the nerve during the surgery. And permanent nerve injury is seen in 0.5 to 5% cases. The voice change lasts beyond 6 months. So management of recurrent laryngeal nerve injuries, acute bilateral abductor paralysis needs immediate tracheostomy or endotracheal intubation. And delayed onset paralysis, that is after a week or two, it needs anti-edema measures or tracheostomy if stridor is there. And late onset, after several weeks, if airway compromise is present, patient needs immediate tracheostomy. Endoscopic chordotomy is preferred therapeutic intervention for long-term management of vocal cord palsy. because bilateral vocal cord palsy can lead to stridor and respiratory distress. So patient need endoscopic chorotomy in such cases. Sir, anything so far, sir?
Anyone?
Janani, what is this endoscopic chordotomy?
Sir, in case of bilateral vocal cord palsy, both vocal cords will be abducted, sir. So they'll make chordotomy. They'll create a rent so that it will prevent stridor. They'll create a rent in the vocal cord. So airway is not
Okay.
compromised.
Janani,
This is what I. Sir? Yes, sir.
on table, what are the
Sir?
tips to prevent injury to the RLN?
Sir, that is what, sir. As I discussed earlier, we should be sure about the anatomy. We should search the nerve along the tracheoesophageal groove, and also we should ligate the vessel proximal to the gland as much as possible, and we should ligate inferior thyroid vessels separately, because sometimes nerve will go in between the vessels. So we should ligate it separately.
And avoid
And
cautery
Berry's
in that
ligament.
area.
While dissecting at the Berry's ligament, we should be careful.
And avoid cautery also in that area.
Yes, sir. Bipolar to be preferred. Than
Preferably
monopolar.
no cautery.
No cautery.
Preferably, yes, sir.
Okay, if at all, if you
And,
have to use some cautery, it has to be bipolar.
Yes, sir.
Ideally, no cautery.
And show the nerve to the assistant. He should be also satisfied.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can I go ahead, sir?
Yeah.
So external laryngeal nerve injuries, it supplies cricothyroid muscle. The action is to tense the vocal cord, so it serves the high pitch voice. Cricothyroid form the posteromedial border of the upper pole vessels and upper pole of thyroid and upper pole vessels, and on dissection and electrocoagulation during our thyroidectomy, there are chances of external laryngeal nerve injuries. So adjacent to inferior constrictor, we should be careful about our dissection, because the nerve lies adjacent to the inferior constrictor muscle. Sometimes nerve is adherent, or it will be entwined around the branches of superior thyroid artery. So while ligating, we should be careful during surgery. The unilateral damage to external laryngeal nerve leads to hoarse, monotonous voice, which can be lasting for a week. Bilateral damage leads to hoarseness plus voice fatigue for 3 months or permanent loss. So preserving external laryngeal nerve, there should be firm upward traction of the gland while during the surgery, and division of sternothyroid muscle and caudal traction of the upper pole during our surgical step. If external laryngeal nerve is not seen in this position, it should be seen between. It should be searched in between superior thyroid artery and vein. Vein and artery has to be identified and ligated separately in such cases. So recurrent laryngeal nerve damage has better prognosis and recovery when compared to external laryngeal nerve injury, according to literature.
Janani?
Yes, sir.
You didn't mention about the anatomical variations of external laryngeal nerve. There are 3 variants, no?
Yes, sir. I mentioned in between the superior thyroid artery and vein is one, sir.
Do you know about the type 1, type 2A, type 2B?
So no, sir. Can you please mention, sir?
Okay, type 1 is when the nerve is entering the pharynx up greater than 1 centimeter above the joint upper pole of the thyroid, and anything below 1 centimeter, that is close is taken as 2A or 2B. 2B is very close, that is below the joining of the arteries to the upper pole. So most dreaded is in cases of type 2A, where the artery and the nerve are closely intertwined.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, can I go to next slide, sir?
No, firm upward traction is what? What do you mean by firm upward traction?
Sir, while retracting our thyroid during the surgery, we should give firm upward traction so that we'll be able to see the nerve along the course. If we don't give proper traction, we might dissect through the nerve.
You do upward traction there?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure. Ask sir.
Anteriorly, sir.
Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
I missed the discussion. What was it? Janani?
Is
Sir,
it firm upward?
to expose the superior thyroid vessel, we'll do the traction now, sir. So at that time, we
Yeah.
should.
Where do you put upward traction? It will be downward traction, not upward.
Yes, sir.
traction.
Sorry, sir. Yes, sir.
traction,
Downwards.
upward.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Correct. Sorry, sir. Typo mistake. To expose the superior thyroid vessel, we should do firm downward traction so that we will not cut through the nerve. Yes, sir.
If you do
Yes,
the
sir.
upward traction,
Yes,
everything
sir.
will
I
be
got
okay.
confused. Yes, sir.
Okay, downward traction it is okay.
Yes, sir. While doing this traction, if we couldn't visualize the nerve in this position, it must be in between the superior thyroid artery and vein. So
What
we
you
should
probably-
ligate.
what
Sir?
you probably-
Visualize,
Yes, sir.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
no, you visualize the artery and vein first, not the nerve. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Here
Yes, sir.
our main aim is to search the artery and vein separately
Yes, sir.
and ligate them. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then go for the nerve, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
So we should ligate them separately, and we should avoid injuring the nerve.
So
Janani,
superior
what-
thyroid vessels and inferior thyroid vessels, superior thyroid vessels go away from the gland,
Yes, sir.
inferior thyroid vessels to near the gland. That is the
Yes,
rule.
sir.
No, sir. It is exactly opposite.
No.
Superior
Present-
thyroid should be near the gland.
present is both near the gland only, sir. Superior thyroid
Yeah,
also.
that
and
is correct. That is correct.
present recommendation is both close to the gland. Earlier,
Okay.
it used to be away for the inferior thyroid and close to the superior thyroid. Now, the
Okay.
recommendation is both close to the gland.
Close
Okay.
means right on the gland. That will avoid the nerve.
Yes, yes. And what this firm upward traction, what they probably mean is anteriorly. Pull it anteriorly and downwards, not superiorly.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
So what material you use for ligation?
Sir, sir.
What ligature? What suture material you use for ligation?
So we use Vicryl, sir.
Number
30 Vicryl.
simple ligation or you take a bite?
Sir, simple
ligation.
only, sir.
Simple ligation only, sir.
Ah. Should know all
In
these things,
continuity.
but
Yes,
you should tell.
No, it should be ligated
Okay,
in
go ahead.
continuity. You should put just like cystic artery. You should put 3 ligatures and
Yes.
cut in between those two. That is a better
In
thing.
between the 2 and 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We use mixture forceps for that right angled to
Yes,
hook
yes.
the superior pole.
Yeah,
Yes,
that is very convenient.
Very convenient one. Mixture.
Ligature can be anything. It can be silk also. It can be white
Linen.
linen silk also. So it can be in the strength of 20 or 30 based on the necessity there.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So next we'll go to hypercalcemia. Post-surgical hypoparathyroidism is defined as serum levels of calcium less than 8 or ionized calcium less than 1.1 millimoles per liter. Prevalence of post-surgical hypoparathyroidism ranges from 10 to 46%. It can be transient and permanent. Transient hypoparathyroidism, it is resolution of hypocalcemia without treatment after 6 to 12 months post-op, it is seen in 10% of population. Permanent hypocalcemia is reported in 43%, less than 43% cases.
10% of population means what?
Sir, it is
Post-surgery or-
post-surgery, sir.
So population means
Post-thyroidectomy.
whole
Population
population
is
of
not
the
a
area
correct
it becomes.
word.
No, sir. Population, post-thyroidectomy population. Yes, sir.
That prevalence is what?
Prevalence.
It is also the same 10 to 46% in those who have undergone total thyroidectomy.
Total thyroid.
Total thyroidectomy. That you must
Yes, sir.
mention, not all
Yes, sir.
thyroidectomies.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Generally,
sir.
how do they present? How the patient presents with hypocalcemia clinically?
Sir, clinically, patient will have paresthesia around mouth or a tingling at the tip of fingers, and also signs like carpopedal spasm, Chvostek's sign, and also exaggerated reflexes on examination, sir.
Okay.
And, the risk factors for hypocalcemia, that is post total thyroidectomy, these are large size and weight of huge weight of the gland, retrosternal extension of thyroid, dissection of central neck nodes, and reinterventions, that is in cases of redo surgeries in thyroidectomy cases, preoperative deficit or insufficient vitamin D levels, and females are more prone for hypocalcemia post the total thyroidectomy, and less than 2 parathyroid gland if it is identified intraoperatively, most likely patient will land up with hypocalcemia symptoms. So we should be careful while doing our ward rounds. Management of hypocalcemia. So thiazide diuretics can be given, can be tried in cases of long-standing hypocalcemia, and patient has to be followed up with calcium, phosphorus, and creatinine levels monthly. Once the levels are stable, we can do follow-up checkup of calcium, phosphorus, and creatinine level twice a year. And there are new therapy options like bovine PTH considered in hypoparathyroidism refractory to calcium and vitamin D treatment, and recombinant PTH is also available nowadays. It increases serum calcium level at 6 to 8 hours and vitamin D at 12 hours. But it is only under trial now. It is not yet being given to patients yet.
No, in management, you don't give vitamin D3 and calcium supplementation.
Yes, sir. We'll start up with calcium and vitamin D treatment, sir. In
You
cases
don't
of
continue. How long you will give that?
sir, we'll give for 3 months and we'll recheck the calcium level, sir.
If it is less, you after starting thiazide diuretics, you are going to stop them or you have to continue?
Sir, we'll have to monitor these levels, and also we should check the ionized calcium level whenever patient comes for monthly follow-up. If it is getting stabilized, we'll try with calcium and vitamin D only. Or if it is still not getting stabilized, we can give it for up to 1 or 2 years, sir.
That means you have to continue.
Continue for 1 or 2 years.
That you have not mentioned under management. That's why I asked.
Yes, sir. We'll have to continue until the calcium level is getting stabilized. And we should do all these follow-up tests monthly for up to 1 year, and twice a year we can do once the levels are stabilized.
Calcium gluconate when to give?
Sir, when patient has all these symptoms, like all these spasm and signs and exaggerated reflex, we can try giving calcium gluconate, sir, before starting oral calcium and vitamin D.
Try now. If patient
We should
develops,
give calcium gluconate.
we have to give.
We have to give.
Okay. And
what is the dose? How do you?
what is the dose? How
Wait,
to give?
Janani, wait.
Yes, sir.
I think first year should tell this. Janani.
Yes, sir.
Let the first year tell.
First year you have to ask specifically someone. Indraja.
Yes, sir.
Indraja, how do
10%
we
of
give?
calcium gluconate will give through the 100 ml. No, sir.
what-
We have
what?
to dilute 10% of calcium gluconate. We have to dilute and give directly through the IV, sir.
What
No,
you
no,
should
no.
monitor, don't go giving it.
How much you will give? And
Mm.
sir asked, what will you monitor?
Sir, I'm not sure, sir.
Pawan.
Sir, 10% calcium gluconate. We have to give in. We have to dilute in 10 ml NS and slowly given for 10 minutes, sir. And we have to monitor any respiratory depression like this.
Also
Arrhythmias.
reflexes.
Mm.
Reflexes
reflexes,
position.
No, no. No, I think you have to monitor the pulse. They will develop bradycardia.
Ready, correct.
Sir, actually in one vial there will be 10 ml, sir. So 1000 mg will be there. We should dilute it in normal saline and we should give it for over 10 or 15 minutes slowly.
Janani,
And
Janani,
yes, sir.
what we do is, what we practice is in such
Yes, sir.
patients, 100 ml normal saline, this one are available. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So in that 100 ml normal saline bottle, 1 ampule of calcium gluconate, give slowly, monitor the pulse.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Can this calcium deficiency produce hemocoagulation defects? Because calcium is one of the coagulation factor, no?
I'm not sure about it, sir.
Sir, in acute, it won't
Not
be
sure, sir.
there, sir.
No,
In acute,
no, it won't produce.
yes, sir.
It won't produce because by the time the concentration should be so low to produce this, because most of the anticoagulant what we use here in while preserving the blood, they precipitate the calcium. That is when calcium is not there, blood cannot coagulate. With that principle, that is always mentioned, but the level of calcium should be so low to produce defect. So before that, it will kill the patient with cardiac arrest and all.
Yes,
So
sir. Sir,
usually hypercalcemia doesn't produce coagulation defect.
sir, and role for ECG monitoring while giving calcium gluconate, sir.
Sir,
Yes,
it
it
is
produces
more for
bradycardia, no?
Yes, sir.
arrhythmias
Sir.
also, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Should we monitor ECG? That's what I'm asking.
No, ECG monitoring,
Yeah.
and how can you do it continuously? You can take it only once.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Usually,
can't-
practically, we
Yes, sir.
don't monitor ECG,
You
but we
monitor the
monitor
pulse
pulse.
Sir, okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Janani,
Yes,
two
sir.
signs are Chvostek sign. Please explain Chvostek sign and Trosso sign.
Trocho sign.
Sir, Chvostek sign is when we stimulate over the facial nerve areas. That is when we stimulate over the face, there will be a spasm experienced by the
Spasm?
patient.
Spasm of what?
Where over the face?
Over the nerve areas, sir, the PES areas.
Now,
How do you stimulate?
Abnormal stimulation will be there, so there will be
How do you stimulate? But
so we'll tap over the face, sir.
yes, yes. Tell like that.
So
Tapping
there will
over
be
the,
twitching of the muscles. So
yes.
yes, sir.
Supplied by areas of facial nerve.
yeah, subclinical hypercalcemia, which is not really detected, but if you want to demonstrate, what else you can do other than these tests?
Subclinical.
Can you induce carpal spasm?
BP
So we should be yes, sir. With BP above the systolic blood pressure, we should inflate the cuff, and
Yeah.
we should check for spasm.
With that, you can induce carpal spasm.
Yes, sir.
Then there is any other questions?
Sir, no, sir. Over, sir.
No. I think there is a question. Treatment for external laryngeal nerve injury.
So what's that?
Treatment for external laryngeal nerve injury. How do you treat them?
External laryngeal nerve. Sir, treatment wise, sorry, the recovery is we'll wait for up to 6 months, sir. If the recovery is not there, the prognosis actually very poor with external laryngeal nerve, sir. Injury than recurrent laryngeal nerve.
Not about the prognosis. It will be the voice.
Rehabilitation can be given, sir. Early diagnosis of this thing and speech therapy.
What rehabilitation? Speech therapy.
Early speech therapy.
Speech therapy is the D treatment, which most of the places follow. But outcome of speech therapy is also variable. It depends. There is no guarantee that your voice will improve. So it is very important for the singers, politicians who or some speakers who where they lose the pitch of their voice. So it is most important in them. And speech therapy is the voice therapy is the most followed thing for treating the external laryngeal nerve injury. But results are variable. Okay, there are other surgical procedures which are being done in a limited centers with limited numbers. Outcomes are also again variable and poor. So the procedures are medialization, laryngoplasty, thyroplasty, there are cricothyroid approximation. So many things have been tried and reinnervation using nerve grafts. Okay, but all the outcomes are not so great.
Yes, sir.
So the most commonly performed treatment is voice therapy.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Janani,
Yes, sir.
so you assisted a thyroid surgery with sir, and after 2 hours you go to the ward round there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The patient has got difficulty in breathing, and there's a lot of blood in the drainage, and dressing is also soaked. What you will do?
Sir, if drain is bloody and this thing, first we should secure the airway, sir. First we'll move the patient to OT and we'll secure the airway.
What you will do in the ward first?
In ward,
He is very much breathless, you know, and dressing is fully soaked, and you can see literally clots also.
Okay.
Before shifting him to OT or something, what you will do in the ward itself or in the ICU itself?
We'll intubate, sir. We'll intubate him.
Intubation, how you can do, man?
No, open the sutures.
Okay,
Yes.
open the sutures. Yes, sir.
Open the sutures. Okay.
Yes,
Open
sir.
the sutures. That you should know, because the clot is pressing over the trachea.
Okay.
When patient is in distress, first goal is to open the sutures. Okay. And then try to secure the airway. If there is facilities or thing is available, bedside only you can intubate. And then shift the patient to OT.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
What you will do in the OT now?
Sir, suture means it's not the skin suture. The
Yes, sir,
suture
inside.
of the deep fascia that should be removed.
Yes, all sutures almost.
Deep fascia suturing, whatever you have done in the midline, that has to be removed. Not only the skin sutures.
Okay, you will shift to the OT. Then what you will do? Anesthetist has come, anesthesia is taken. Then next what? What you will do?
We'll re-intubate.
No, all that is done after that.
After that.
So we should find from where the bleeding is.
Okay, how you will, sir?
And we mostly if the bleeding is very profuse, it must be from the superior thyroid vessels. So we should search for the bleeding and ligate it, sir.
Nothing like it should be from superior laryngeal.
Mostly
from both.
Anywhere
okay,
it will
can be from middle thyroid vein also. Okay, because it's a direct branch from jugular, this thing. So those things also can bleed profusely. It need not be from superior thyroid alone. So you go in a stepwise manner, put pressures, go in a stepwise manner from either superior to inferior or inferior to superior, whichever you're at that point of time you want. Where there is more oozing, in that area you search for it.
Yes, sir.
In a stepwise manner. And even after you have achieved hemostasis, you wait for some time. Okay, to check. Just because you caught one vessel and don't close it in hurry that you have achieved hemostasis. Wait for 5 to 10 minutes, keep a gauze pack or something, see for some time, and then remove the gauze pack, wait for a few minutes, and then close.
Yes, sir.
Especially when you are reopen. Sir, Ramkrishna Sarnoli, sir, anything else, sir?
Yeah, you can give a bit normal saline wash also if you are unable to identify fresh oozings from some area you can see. And as you told, you can pack it and relax.
Okay.
Janani, go to your
Sir.
initial slides. I was surprised that nobody picked up. What is that? Go to your initial slides.
Which one, sir?
Go early, late. You have put no complication list. Go to that late complication. What is that subclinical hypothyroidism?
Sir, sir, it is given in the one as one of the complications, sir.
No, it is hypothyroidism.
Suppose thyroidectomy, yes, sir. Post thyroidectomy.
Post thyroidectomy, total thyroidectomy, it is hypothyroidism. Subclinical hypothyroidism, when will it happen? It happens in patients who have undergone hemithyroidectomy.
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay, so probably the amount of hormone produced may not be sufficient.
Okay.
So that's why we always, even in hemithyroidectomy patients, we check TSH after 6 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it is not only subclinical, it can be clinical hypothyroidism also.
Yes, sir.
After thyroidectomy, you have to supplement. Correct? No? Total thyroidectomy. Yes, yeah.
How you will avoid poor scar?
Sir, by meticulous closure of skin. We'll usually put subcuticular suturing, sir.
Okay, good. You can use clips also.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. So clips will
also give
scar, sir. So we should ideally decide pre-operate while taking the incision. Before taking the incision, we should identify where we have to take the incision by taking a thread and marking it, sir. Ideally, Lakshman sir has also mentioned this before, sir. So that the correct apposition is happening, we can use markers to identify in between. If it is especially if it is in case of total thyroidectomy, if it is a large incision, we can take a marker and mark the opposite two edges of the skin, so that while opposing, we know that it will not be forward or backward, and we don't end up with dog ears at the end. And
okay. What I use is I press a thread, long thread you break and press over the incision. That neatly marks the incision. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That also you can do. And skin incision should be
along the Langer's line.
Along the lines.
Yeah. Platysma should be bit above.
Yeah. Now what you was meant was probably you have to make 3 or 4 vertical lines across it, so that when you make horizontal incision, you know what part should come where. So that will avoid the soft tissue malunion.
Yes, sir.
If it is not matched, then you will get a wrong this one. Another thing is subcuticular, this platysma layer, that should be also closed in one layer, and that layer line should be little different than the skin layer.
Yes.
It should be little higher or lower, like that. Then that will give a very good scar.
That marking is more important in cases of parotids, where you put a S-shaped incision. In thyroid, it may not be. Most of the times, you will be able to easily identify
skin crease.
That they use. The other one, sir, that subclinical hypothyroidism monitoring. One more point is sometimes we operate and the diagnosis comes as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Such patients are more prone for this, because all Hashimoto's ultimately end up with hypothyroidism. You have to monitor it.
Correct. Initially, they will be hyperthyroid, and later they go into hypothyroid.
That's why you have to monitor it. Even though the thyroid level is normal right now, in future it can happen. And some surgeons in multinodular goiter also they routinely use, even if thyroid function tests are normal, still they use L-Troxin 100 micrograms OD, and they give it lifelong. That is supposed to prevent further enlargement of the whatever tissue remaining there, especially
You mean
hemithyroidectomy.
You mean post-op or?
Post-op.
Post-op in hemithyroidectomy.
Hemithyroidectomy, if the diagnosis is multinodular goiter, post-operatively, they give lifelong. Because the whatever thyroid remaining there, that can develop into multinodular goiter in a later part. So this is supposed to prevent. I don't know whether literature evidence is there or not. Some surgeon practice that.
Yeah, there is. I don't think there is any literature evidence for that. And even if it is multinodular goiter, I don't think hemithyroidectomy should be done. It should be either or.
I am not telling that condition, sir. Sometimes what happens, solitary nodule of thyroid, patient will present with solitary nodule of thyroid. You do hemithyroidectomy. Histopathology report comes as multinodular goiter because they may find some small nodules here and there. Such cases, not clinically frank multinodular.
Yes. Okay. I think there are some questions in chat box. Generally, dose of thyroxine after total thyroidectomy.
Sir?
Dose of thyroxine after total thyroidectomy.
Sir, we'll start with 100 micrograms, sir, post thyroidectomy. Am I right, sir?
Saurav, Ajit?
Ideally, we should tell like per kg, sir, dose. So around 1.5 per micrograms per kg body weight, like that.
Saurav?
Sir, 125 to 150, I think, sir. I'm not sure exactly. Mostly it is 150 only.
No. You can't blanketly say it is 100, 125 or 150. Okay, it is per kg body weight. Most of the adult dosage will be usually for normal adult weight will be around 100. Most of the people start around 100. Okay, but if patient is very obese, you can give 125 or 150 based on that body weight. Okay, and after 6 weeks, you check for it and rearrange if it is required.
If it is CA thyroid and total thyroidectomy, what will be the thyroid dose?
So that will be higher, sir, because in that case we have to suppress in case there are remnants, we have to suppress that. So in that case we have to give around 150, sir.
No, it will be somewhere around 200 to 300. Because it should produce slight hyperthyroidism symptoms. Till then they will give.
Yes, sir.
The TSH level should be less than 0.01. That much you should suppress. It will be more than 200. Sometimes they give up to 300 also.
Okay, sir.
And
thank you,
there
sir.
is one more question. When to stop anti-thyroid drugs and beta blockers in hyperthyroidism? Is that right?
Yeah.
Janani?
Sir, when to stop anti-thyroid
drugs? You mean before surgery? Whoever has asked that question, Prashant.
Good evening, sir. This is after surgery, sir. After surgery, when to stop?
After surgery for what?
Wait.
After
sir, we should not stop anti-thyroid.
No. He's asking, I think after thyroid surgery for hyperthyroidism. That is what you're asking, no?
Yeah, sir. If the patient is taking anti-thyroid drugs before, if he is a hyperthyroid patient.
Okay.
Sir, we should not stop the anti-thyroid drugs, sir. We should.
No. Wait 1 second.
Get his question properly. He's asking post-op, not pre-op.
The post-operatively also, after total thyroidectomy, we should give supplements, sir. Thyroxine supplement.
No. That is
He's asking anti-thyroid.
Not thyroid.
Okay, anti-thyroid. Yes, sir. Sir, I'm not sure, sir, about this.
Saurav.
So usually post-operatively, I'm not sure about this, sir.
Ajit?
No, sir, I don't know, sir.
Abdul?
Sir, usually you stop anti-thyroid drug, but beta blockers should be continued.
Correct. So usually anti-thyroid drugs may not be continued post-operatively, but beta blockers should be considered for few days till the pulse rate stabilizes, because there can be still be some amount of thyroid hormone which can be there in the bloodstream.
What is the rationale behind that?
Which one, sir?
Why that answer is correct, but why anti-thyroid drugs are stopped immediately, but not beta blockers? It is continued.
See, anti-thyroid drugs, most of the thyroid gland you have taken out, that will prevent the stimulus. And beta blockers will be continued because there will be some amount of thyroid hormone in the bloodstream, and also to sometimes there can be pulse rate, transient increase in the pulse rate and pulse rate. So that for that reason, beta blockers are advised to be continued post-op.
No, that is correct, sir. But I'm asking, what is the rationale? It is because anti-thyroid drugs act on the thyroid. So when you have taken out the thyroid, there is no need to continue that. Whereas beta blockers, they act peripherally, blocking the action of the thyroid hormones in the periphery. So as long as the thyroid hormones are there in excess in the circulation, you have to continue it. That is the rationale.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Noli, sir, anything else, sir?
Beta blocker should not be stopped abruptly, otherwise also.
Yes.
Yeah, it will never be stopped abruptly, immediately post-op after surgery.
Correct. No, sir. In other patients also,
They will taper it, sir.
You have to taper it. Even in hypertensive, where we put beta blocker.
Correct.
If you want to change or stop it, you should not be stopping it abruptly. Taper it.
Correct. It is called weaning the dosage.
Correct.
Yes.
Any
other things they have discussed, something like storm, thyroid storm, all those things are discussed.
Yes,
I don't know. I joined little late.
It was last class which we had discussed extensively. This was just a review of literature. She had put it up and which she was not able to complete.
Okay, sir.
Any questions anybody wants to ask?
The parathyroid that they were telling, no? If you find you have removed parathyroid, can you put it back?
Yes, sir. We can place it.
Last time we have discussed it.
Yes, sir. Last
you
time.
have discussed. Okay. I have not attended. That's why. Okay. All right.
You can tell Janani.
Sir, if we remove it accidentally, we can place it in the forearm, sir, or we can place it back
in the sternocleidomastoid.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and if we are doing for that Men's syndrome, if we are doing thyroidectomy and if we retrieve the parathyroid accidentally, then we can place it in forearms.
Yes, sir.
So Janani, now pre-operatively, how do you counsel the patient now? You are sitting for a consent with the patient, okay?
Yes, sir.
So they think that there is a multinodular goiter, you are planning for thyroidectomy, and how do you consider what all the main complications you are going to tell to the patient and patient relatives?
Sir,
expected.
Sir, first I'll tell about the complication of bleeding, sir. Intraoperative bleeding and the chances of injuries to the nerve. So that voice, I'll tell about voice change, dysphonia, and respiratory distress, if at all we injure the nerve, and the need for ventilator support if at all respiratory distress happens intraoperatively, or while extubation due to tracheomalacia or something. If respiratory distress is there, patient might require ventilation. I'll explain that. And post-operatively hematoma. I'll tell about hematoma and hypocalcemia. Hypocalcemia. It can be either permanent or transient. All those things I'll tell, sir.
It all depends on what type of thyroidectomy. If it is hemithyroidectomy, you need to tell all these things.
No, so this is for total thyroidectomy.
Total
Yeah,
thyroidectomy.
and depending on the size also. If the
Size and
gland is
In cases
diagnosis.
of huge goiter, we should tell about this tracheomalacia and those things. Yes.
And your preoperative diagnosis. If you are suspecting malignancy, you must always tell he may require second surgery, completion thyroidectomy. If you are planning for hemithyroidectomy
Yes,
for a
sir.
solitary nodule,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to explain there is a possibility of second surgery, completion thyroidectomy, if it comes malignant. What is the chance of malignancy in solitary nodule of thyroid?
Around percentage, I'm not sure, sir. Around
Cold nodule, it will be around 15 to 20%, and warm nodule less than 5%. Sir.
Warm nodule means?
It's a hot nodule, sir. If you are doing
Heart nodules will never be malignant. I don't think heart nodules will be malignant.
It is mentioned in Bailey only, sir. Less than
Heart
5%.
nodules.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I doubt. We have to check again. Heart nodules, no chance. Overall chance around 10%.
Sir, in heart nodules also there is a possibility, but it is very less. I think around 1%. 5% probably is too high. I don't know whether Bailey has quoted that.
Yes, sir. Okay.
But it is not zero. It is not zero, but it is very rare. Please check the literature again and tell us.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So overall, totally, if you consider overall, around 10% should be the approximate.
Correct. Okay. If no more questions, any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know if no more questions, we will end it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good night, sir. Nice
Thank you, sir.
presentation, Johnny. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.